And welcome back, guys. In today's video, I wanted to briefly talk about my weekend in the Czech Extraliga. I played on Saturday and on Sunday. In this video, I just want to go over my game from Saturday, where I drew against Tomas Laurusas. On Sunday, I also drew against Polish Grandmaster Robert Kempinski, but that game was a pretty quick draw, so there was nothing much to say about that one. And but in my game against Tomas Laurusas, I had one chance to win the game, actually. In the game, of course, as you can see, ended in a draw. But I thought it was quite nice, and there were a couple of instructive moments in that game. Still, the weekend was acceptable. I drew against two opponents that are equally my strength, so that is okay. But I'm a bit upset, of course, for missing this one chance against Laurusas. Laurusas has a ridiculously low rating now. He's still 2500, but maybe after this weekend, actually, I think he lost on Sunday. Maybe maybe he dropped below 2500, which I find absolutely ridiculous because I think he's a very solid and strong grandmaster. Typically, he's somewhere between 2550 and 2570, something like that. So I believe he's quite underrated now. I checked before playing him. He had 2 months where in 1 month he lost, I think, 41 rating points, and in another one he lost like 20 or something like that. And that's how fast all of your rating can be gone. I started with c4 against him, and preparation against him, that's the one thing, it's sort of straightforward because after e4 he plays mostly the Petrov, at least against players who are equal to his strength or stronger. And against c4, d4, knight f3, he almost always opts for some sort of Slav, and some strange Slavs, like honestly, like in our game he went for the Schlechter Slav with g6, which doesn't have the greatest of all reputations. Like I believe that it's also a little bit unjust because it's not such a bad opening as many people are saying, but it is certainly a little bit passive. He does also go for bishop f5 and also a6. And I briefly prepared this line with g6 against him, but he did surprise me here with the move b6, which I have not prepared. Obviously, black can also go for something along the lines of bishop g4. One thing I prepared against him was after a6, you're supposed to go a4, stopping b5. And if black goes a5 now, there is this idea here to now take on d5. And one thing which I found to be quite instructive here, I saw that this move knight e1 is pretty good, which I didn't expect when I first saw the position, because typically you're happy to win the bishop pair with h3. But here it's actually more important to keep the knight, because this knight can then often go to d3, sometimes queen b5 is coming. And this felt like, to me, it should give white some pretty nice chances. But he played b6, and here I was thinking a little bit too long, I mean, not a little bit, way too long, and went for the move b4. White has generally a couple of interesting options. I was thinking about b3 as well. Also a4 here, I actually quite liked a lot, but then I wasn't sure, like, if he goes a5 now, if I'm giving him just a version with the tempo up, but I'm still not sure here. Like, if I go for the same here, just with the extra move b6, I wasn't entirely sure, because also now the c6 knight can be hanging in some variations. So this would have been another option. But I went for b4, and still the position felt quite pleasant for me. I'm getting some type of Grunfeld where he did not, some anti-Grunfeld where he did not have some concrete ideas, which typically if white manages to get this, he should be slightly better. But now he went for an interesting idea to take and go knight d5, which forces me, at least I thought it forces me to take on d5, because if I try to protect this with queen b3, he has ideas to take and just go c5, which I didn't really like. So I took and went into this position, which still feels like it should be a bit better for me because I have more space on the queen side, and generally his fianchettos are not so great in this position. Knight d7, now queen b3. And he played a6, aiming to stop, to answer b5 with a5 and answer a5 with b5. I played bishop a3, which seems like a good move to me. Computer is also giving bishop b2, but it feels pretty logical here. Rook e8. he's actually not really preparing to go e5 here, I believe, but just starting to prepare e6, because e5, sometimes it can work, but typically it mostly would backfire from what I understood. I went b5, now he went a5. Computer actually is giving e5 here, which is surprising me a little bit. I mean, I guess it's possible, but actually I'm not so sure. Like in the game I thought here that I can just take on d5 at the very least in some cases. Maybe black is holding, maybe he will get some 4 versus 3, but it doesn't seem like a human decision here. So I went a5 just to keep everything closed, rook c1, rook c8, I went h3. I didn't really see any really better way to improve the position. Maybe I could go for h4 instead, that would be possible too, but I only wanted to start pushing on the king side once queens were off the board. So here, let's just jump a few moves ahead. Computer always gives some slight edge, but black is incredibly solid and it should be a draw with precise play, but I do keep some slight pull here, even in the endgame, which we are seeing now. And here I started with g4, which I believe is quite an instructive moment. If black is in time to play e6, exchange those bishops, play f6 and something like this, you shouldn't have any issues whatsoever. Also in the long run, I do have the pawns on light squares, so I cannot attack with this bishop, I cannot attack either of his pawns here. So I went g4, and my idea was that after he goes e6, now I can take and then go g5 here. And now at least I have fixed his pawn structure there. The position is still a draw, but it feels like he needs to be a little bit careful here. King g7, I went h4, h6. Now I brought my king g2, f6. He needs to challenge the pawn here. Otherwise, if he doesn't do anything here, I would just slowly bring my king to f4 and then go knight e5 at some point. And then those endgames could very well be lost after he takes, because my king is just entering. So he went f6, and now I took on f6. King g3 is also very natural, but here I thought that he can, well, I don't know if he needs to take here or if he goes immediately e5, but generally I felt like this should be his idea, and then I didn't really see anything special from me. I also need to be careful not to enter some lines like this, because then this a4 pawn could actually be a target, which he could attack. Also, the king can sometimes run to the queen side. So I took on f6, and now I went knight h2, which I thought was quite a nice try, because now I'm really stopping e5 because of knight g4, and I'm sort of provoking him to go h5. Otherwise, knight g4, he needs to go back king g7, and then I can really run into there with my king. Went to h5, and now bishop f3, which looks a bit awkward, but I wanted to stop him going e5. Another option is to go f4, which, however, I felt like should offer him some chances to make some sort of fortress. Because I thought I'm not really in time to place everything like this. Even if I can get that, it's not entirely obvious if he just protects the pawn there. Like, for example, I thought if he puts the bishop to e8 here and then just waits around, like maybe I'm in time to push e4 at some moment, but it felt like it should be a draw somehow. Also, maybe he has the chance to put the knight to f5 somehow, perhaps. I don't know, maybe this is not the best square, but something like this perhaps. And then, is he getting to f5? Well, maybe not. Yeah, knight g8 and then something like this. And if he gets the knight to f5, then it's probably just a straightforward draw, because even if I take here, now I don't have, well, the knight is of course beautiful, but I don't have any pawns which I can actually attack. So that's why I didn't go for f4, I went bishop f3. If he goes e5 now, then I can take on e5. This was my whole idea. So he goes bishop b7, preparing that. But then I played king g3, e5, and bishop g2. And now my idea is actually to go bishop h3, and then quite often this bishop on b7 can be sort of locked out. He went knight f8, bishop h3, took on d4. Actually, he told me at some point that he was expecting something else, but I think it was a little bit, might have been a bit later. Yeah, I think here he was expecting knight e5, but king e7 was actually the final blunder. This was my chance here. So he took on d4, went knight e6, knight f3. I could take on e6 immediately, but it would lead to what happened in the game in the very end, which would be a draw. So I tried still knight f3, and here I was actually feeling like even objectively it could already be quite close for him, because I was calculating bishop c8 here, trying to bring back the bishop into the game. And now I was thinking about knight g5, and especially with low time, he was probably unsure about the following pawn endgame. I was too, because here at first it seems like I can put him into Zugzwang. I was still not entirely sure at this point, because he does have g5. H takes g5, king g6, and still here I was thinking about king e5. Because if he takes now f4, and I will probably be the first one to queen. Like this, or maybe both parties will queen at the same time, but well, I will be first, and then I'll probably be able to pick up all of his pawns on the queen side. But the issue with all of that is that he has, after king e5, h4, I was still thinking about king f4 in the game, h3, king g3, but then it just turns out that this pawn endgame is actually winning for black, because he picks up the pawn on d4, and now his d pawn is probably gonna decide the game here. f4, king e4. But you need to see all of that, and with low time, it's quite difficult. Still, of course, I don't need to go into this lost pawn endgame. I can do many things. I can maybe play knight. Well, knight e5 might run into knight takes d4, but worst case, I can take on e6, and I shouldn't be worse, of course. But he played king e7. Now I took on e6. Here he actually told me about knight e5 after the game, but I didn't really consider that. He was talking to me about knight takes d4, knight takes g6, followed by knight f4, and he thought it would be promising for me. But yeah, it gets incredibly messy here. This is also what he told me about, and computer gives zeros here, so it's yeah, it's just a complete mess. But I took on e6, which is still correct. King takes e6, but now I had one chance to win the game, and you can use this as an exercise if you would like. If you want to, make sure to stop the video now. I'll tell you what I played in the game now. I played the move king f4, which is not the right way to, which is throwing away my chance. The winning move is knight e5, which I still thought about in the game. Because now I'm attacking the g6 pawn. He cannot go king f6 because of knight d7. But I did not see what I can play after king f5. Now, first of all, king e4 is quite a big threat. So if he goes knight d7, I saw king e4, and I immediately stopped now because, well, if knight b6, king d4, even I can lose the game, because now he maybe runs to the e4 pawn. I don't really have a lot of play on the king side, and the d pawn is also quite strong. And I was briefly thinking about f3 as well, just to consolidate and then have knight d7, but then he just goes bishop c8, and this is where I sort of stopped. I didn't see anything else. But here I have this move, knight f7, which I missed in the game. And now the funny thing is that if he goes king e4, I have knight d6 with a fork. And if he goes king e6, I have knight d8 with a fork, and he doesn't really have any way to step out of this. If he goes bishop to a8, then I can give a check here and then go to c8 and then pick up the b6 pawn. If he goes king f6, it's also the same. I go knight d6, he has to go to a8, and again I have this move knight c8 here, picking up the b6 pawn. It actually still goes on. Like if he goes king e4, knight d6, king d4, knight b7. I checked this after the game. Yeah, I didn't see knight f7 during the game. King c3, and also here I have this move knight takes a5, which is sort of lucky for me here, because otherwise I think it wouldn't be so clear, because the d pawn is not easy to stop otherwise. But after knight takes a5, it was winning. It was actually quite a funny line here. I think d4, was it knight c6? d3? Let me check quickly. I think it was knight c6, d3, king f3. And if d2, yeah, if d2, king e2, king c2, knight d4, and then if king c1, there's knight b3, picking up the pawn on d2. There was another pretty cool knight maneuver, but I'm not entirely sure where it actually was. Yeah, also this was possible. Knight b7, d3, knight d6 when the knight is coming to e4. That was also winning. So yeah, this was the fault of my calculation. I did not see this point of knight f7. With more time on the clock, I'm quite certain that I would have been able to spot it. Which brings me back to one issue I've been facing recently, well, for some time actually, is time management and using too much time early in the game. And this is exactly what I did on this move here. Spending 25 minutes for a move like b4 is unacceptable. And I'm saying this also to hold myself accountable, because I do not want this to happen in my next tournaments. And I've known this for some time already, but still find it hard to actually do it in real life, because I feel like often in such early in the game that I want to have like a game plan, and it all now depends on this moment. But it's basically wrong. I think it's a wrong thought, because as we all see, you always get, well, not always, but many times in the game, you get your chances between move 30 and 40. And this is exactly where mostly your opponent is going to be in time trouble. And it's exactly what you should try to avoid. And if you aim to avoid that, and for example here, if I would have had more than 3 minutes on the clock, maybe 10, maybe 20 minutes even, then at least the chances would have increased quite significantly that I would have been able to find knight e5, king f5, knight f7. Anyway, in the game, I went king f4, he went king f6, and now I went knight to g5. I realized that it's a draw here already. I have the pretty good knight, but the main challenge is that my pawns are on light squares, and he does have some counterplay with his bishop coming. Like, I was thinking about ideas like this as well, and then to bring the knight to either c3 or also to e3. But I don't really have a way to make progress here. Like, even if he plays bishop e6 and just knight bishop f7, I do have the beautiful knight, but he can just continue waiting, and I don't have any entry squares with my king either, and I also cannot attack the b6 pawn. So I went knight g5, bishop c8, and now knight h7. Actually, I'm not sure if this is already important, because otherwise I don't have any counterplay if he gets bishop f5, bishop c2. So I'm guessing this, yeah, knight h7 is actually the only move here. But now it's a repetition. Briefly in the game, I was even thinking about going for this. King takes h7 and then f4. But it is not an entirely ridiculous idea, but he has this move here, bishop d7, which then I also saw in the game. And now the problem is that whenever well, actually here, yeah, bishop b5 immediately not, but for example, king g7, and if I run with the king now, then bishop takes b5 and a4, and now he's just winning the game. Just not immediately, because then after a4, he has king c4 stopping my pawn. So I did still spend some time here after the time control to make sure I don't have any more chances there. And then decided to go for this, and then it was a draw, which was quite unfortunate for the match situation, because then we lost the match -1. And if I would have been able to win this game, then I would have helped the team to make a draw, which I was also upset about, of course, also about my individual result, thinking about rating and all the other things. But overall, I think it was, apart from this one moment, it was a pretty well-played game. I put pressure on my opponent in the end game. Many people reached, or not many people, but some of my friends reached out to me after the game and told me, wow, it was such a boring game, and wow, you only had this one chance out of pure luck. But I don't fully agree with that. Like, even if during many parts of the end game the computer is just showing absolutely nothing, I can tell you in the game it felt much different than that, because if he is not quick and if he's not fast, then he's just going to end up with arguably a strategically lost position. Like, if I get my knight to e5, if I get pressure on g6, if I can enter with my king. So I don't fully agree with that. I think the game was pretty well played overall. Maybe I had some other chances earlier, like not to exchange everything, but even in the end game, I felt like I would have some chances, and it did turn out to be the case. Just I needed to have more time on the clock in the very end to then being able to seize my chance. As I said, apart from that, the game on Sunday was nothing I really want to show on this channel. It was just a pretty quick draw against Kempinski. But I thought there were some interesting moments in this game, especially this one winning chance I had. So I hope you enjoyed this analysis. Hopefully there was something useful there for you guys. And apart from that, I'm going to see you guys soon. Let me know what you would like to see for December. Christmas is coming soon. Austrian League is also coming soon. I'm going to be playing from the 10th to the 15th, I think, in the Austrian League. So yeah, let me know, guys, what you would like to see when Christmas is coming. And yeah, that was it for today. I'm going to see you guys soon.